Alright guys, I'm taking a step back from the cams and I'm going to do a quick video with some more basic stuff. I've got some questions in the comments about how to remove the trim and stuff to be able to paint your plastics. I'm going to start on the rear of the truck because, well, the rear trim that I have here is still mostly stock. So, to remove the rear corners, you're going to remove these first before you get to the actual bumper. First thing you want to do is go ahead and open up the hatch. And there's going to be two Phillips head screws right here. Next, you're just going to go underneath. There is a screw right here on the corner that goes vertically. Once you have these two screws and this vertical screw here, then you're going to go inside the rear fender well. Okay. So there's going to be a few screws going this way. I think I've got one here, and one here, and I think there is a location for a fourth one further back. Again, I don't have all of my screws in here. It is going to be difficult with the tire here. So I have at one point actually removed the tire and put the rear axle on jack stands to be able to get a screwdriver here. But if you have a stubby screwdriver that will fit, or if you have a little ratcheting with a screwdriver bit on it, that will work pretty good too. I have a little bit more room because I have a lift, but I also got larger tires. So it is something that you'll have to look out for. So on a stock Nissan Xterra, there will be a piece of trim plastic up here. I actually recommend removing it. I don't really like the way it looks, but also you can get some vibration and scratching on the actual paint, which can cause it to rust. Now, my trim actually flew off the side of my truck while I was driving down the highway about a week after I purchased the vehicle, so I just decided to take it all off. Who cares about foo-foo plastic anyway? So once you have all those screws out, you can really just kind of take this plastic corner off. That's pretty easy to get to. You can see this was on the inside of the wheel well. That's where you have the screw heads. You can see that's where the screws were underneath the hatch and the vertical screw here. This makes it a lot easier to paint. You can get in all the seams that would otherwise be covered up. And of course, I mean, this was rattle can, and you can see there's some stuff peeling, doesn't stick. I mean, it's been there for 6 years now I've had this truck. Anyway, to put this back on, it's pretty straightforward, but you got to look out for this little bracket right here, and there's a bracket right here. So you just got to kind of line it up and try and make sure that all the screw holes get aligned. So you want to take off both corners before getting to the rear bumper. I'm only going to take off one corner, and I'm not going to take off my rear bumper because it's heavy. But the attachment point on my bumper is the exact same way as it's attached on the stock vehicle. So you can see the frame rail is right here, and I got 3 bolt heads. Now on the actual stock bumper, instead of individual 3 bolts, it's actually an L-shaped plate that has bolts or studs kind of pressed into it. So you're just going to have 3 nuts that you got to take off. So you have to take off all 3 nuts before you can remove the bracket. That was one thing that I had trouble with, is I didn't realize they were all connected together. Now I'm just going to duck the camera underneath and show you the inside of the frame rail here so you can kind of see that attachment point. And here's the inside of the frame rail. It's a C channel, so the opening of the C is towards the middle of the vehicle, and I've got the nuts and lock washers and stuff here. I don't remember on the stock version which way the brackets are facing, so I don't remember if the nuts are on the inside or the outside. But you're just going to have to remove the 3 nuts on both sides of the bumper and then take the brackets out. And you got to look out for the wire harness that attaches to the license plate light. You might have to use a clip. I forget how that actually attaches. I think you could probably just take the bulb out of the actual light fixture itself. But that's something to look out for. Once you have 3 nuts and bolts off of each side of the bumper, the rear bumper will just rotate down. So the front end of my truck is a different story. It's a completely different configuration of the bumper. So I'll have to try and narrate the best that I can based on what I remember, and you'll have to excuse the poor lighting because I don't have a shop light with me right now. But here are the frame rails that come out the front, and everything's symmetrical here. So there are 2 main bolts. Now, instead of my bumper just being bolted to here, the stock bumper has an L-shaped bracket. So there is a stamped sheet metal piece that's bolted here. It goes straight up, then it has a flange that comes out to either side near the tire. So you can disconnect the bumper by getting at these 2 bolts, or by reaching through where like the grill is and getting the vertical bolts that hold the bumper to the little horizontal flange that bends off. I'll try and find a picture and throw that in the video so you can see. Now, as I recall, the stock configuration also had like a little strut support. There's a little steel rod that kind of bolted to a point here and then kind of bolted to some type of anchor point. And I think there was like some plastic trim, like a splash pan right here that just had some Phillips head screws that kind of held it in place. One thing that I'm not quite sure on, there was like a amber side marker up near the edge of the fender where the bumper is. So I think that there's a stud on the actual light fixture, and then there's a nut on the backside. So the splash guard here that goes in the wheel well, I think you're going to have to remove some Phillips head screws, peel that back, and then try and get the nut on the back side here. But again, you're going to have to kind of look for that on your own because I don't recall exactly how that worked. Now, I obviously have a skid plate here, but on the 2002 through 2004, there is like a little cross member here, and it's got a little silver piece of plastic that goes over there. I don't remember exactly how that connected there, but I think it was a combination of either Phillips head screws or it was little pop rivets where you get a little flat blade screwdriver, get underneath the head of the rivet and pull it upwards, and then that plastic comes out. I actually just removed mine. I thought it looked a little bit more rugged just having the cross member across the bottom. I like the look of that. So the front grille here, you have some connection points, 1, 2, 3, 4. I mentioned in previous videos of mine that I just actually zip tie mine. It was a lot easier than the clips. Now the clips that are on the stock configuration of this grill is basically plastic clips, and it has 2 squares. And they're at like a 45-degree angle like this. And it has a flathead screw in it. And so what you gotta do is you need to put a screwdriver on it, rotate it so the squares are in a line, and then you can pull it through the square hole. There's 4 along the top. There will be another place, I think, that was kind of right in this area because on the 2002 through 2004, the grill comes along the bottom of the headlight and it attaches somewhere back here. Mine ended up breaking at some point. I just cut mine flush with the headlights to make room for the steel bumper with all the bars there. Honestly, those clips break all the time, and I've never had an issue having it zip tied. So if you break a few, no worries, just zip tie it. Now there is going to be one that is going to be in the middle. It's difficult to see. I might be able to point it out here. And I'll try and put an arrow or something in the video, but there's going to be one right in the center, and it's right near the center support where the radiator support is, and that's kind of hard to get to. And I don't remember the order which all of this stuff comes off at, so you're going to have to try and use some ingenuity and look around to be clear exactly the best order to get it out. As I recall, I kind of started at the top and worked the way down, but it might be easier if you remove the bumper first. For the 2002 through 2004, you have this headlight bezel. Now there's a little Phillips head screw right here, and I think that there might be one here, but a lot of my trim has been broken. You can actually see I got zip ties holding my headlights in because, well, I bought this truck without really knowing what to look for in a used vehicle, and then I found out that it basically been wrecked, and there's a lot of things that are kind of put back together and repaired improperly. But I digress. So if you remove the Phillips head screws here, there's a little post, so you got to kind of lift the trim up off the post, and there are some tabs. You can just very gently pry it between the fender on the side, and there might be a screw on the bottom. Actually, there is right above the washer fluid. I don't have that screw in there because it seems like none of my stuff is held together correctly. But you just pry it off like this, and now you have the headlight bezel. So this is the much easier way if you want to paint your plastics, to just pry it off. You can kind of see on the bottom side there's a screw here. This looks like it's just a tab that pops in somewhere. There's a screw on the top, and I think this is where there was another screw at some point. It doesn't exist. You can see a little flex tab on the side, which is near where the grill goes, and you can see these little tabs on the side that kind of made up with the fender. There's some little hoops that like interlock with that are on the lens of the headlight. So that's how you remove the plastics and the bumpers and trim to be able to spray paint them or to rattle can bedline them and kind of restore that faded gray look into a nice black bedliner. So like here's an example of my headlight bezel. I spray painted this 6 years ago. It's held up pretty well. Some of the surfaces will hold up better than others. Like near the bottom of the bumper where it's susceptible to road debris or rocks or sand or whatever,
You know, that might end up chipping, but it's pretty easy to just touch up with the spray can without taking everything off. I do recommend, at least for the first time that you paint everything, to go ahead and remove everything so you can get a really thorough coating on it and kind of get in all the nooks and crannies, so to speak. But if you need to do any touch up, it's pretty easy to just use some masking tape and just with a rattle can spray it real quick. So I hope that answered the questions. If you have any other questions, comment below. Like I said, I don't have the stock equipment on my truck anymore, but maybe someone else in the comments will be able to answer your questions. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoy the content of these videos, and have a good day and enjoy your Xterra.
One more thing for the plastic trim that I forgot to talk about is this mud flap behind the front tires. It's similar to the rear corner trim. You got some screws here. I'm not going to take them out, but it looks like there's 2 up here, and there might be 1 down low where the mud flap hangs down. Once you remove those screws, it's held in by 2 kind of Christmas tree type clips. They're kind of push clips similar to what you would have on a door panel. So there's 1 right here and 1 right here, and it pulls straight out. So if you remove the screws and kind of grab it here, pull it straight away from the vehicle, that will pop it free. You might have to use a flat blade screwdriver, maybe wrap it in cloth so you don't scratch your paint or whatever. My truck's obviously beat up, so I quit caring about paint a while ago. But if you just pull it straight out, it'll pop free. That way you can go ahead and get this spray painted and get that to match the rest of your trim.